Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock, so I think we will make a start. Welcome to this meeting of Clean and Green. It's my first time in the chair, having been Barry's left-hand man for a little while, so I'm looking forward to it. Can I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that on hearing the alarm, you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn any other electronic devices being used to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to an internet webcast recording where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it is likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. And may I remind members to declare any interests when the relevant item is raised on the agenda. Before we start the formal proceedings meeting, can I just add that this is the first meeting of any council committee since the tragic passing of Councillor Mark Reed. With agreement of all the parties, we've decided that minute silence and formal condolences will be reserved for the full council meeting later on in the month. But I just thought it would be remiss and inappropriate if we didn't mention and remember Mark at this time. But as I said, the formal condolences are for the full council. I hope that's all right with everybody. Right, in that case, cracking on. Mr. Folkes, have we received any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Gibson with Councillor Chinnery substituting. Apologies from Councillor Patel with Councillor Pound substituting. Apologies from Councillor Barber with Councillor Slade substituting. And apologies from Councillor Aspinall with Councillor Gorton substituting.
Thank you very much. Next item is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from committee members at this stage? No? So the next item, item 3, is minutes of the previous Clean and Green Committee held on the 17th of February. Are there any comments, questions or observations on the minutes? Yes, Councillor Gore.
I ought to know by now. Thank you, Chair. Minute 429, Thames Chase Tree Planting Partnership. It's minuted that I did ask for estimates of carbon capture that this is likely to provide, this scheme is likely to provide. Mr. Must would provide an update offline. I don't believe we've had that update so far, so could I ask via Marcus Say to chase up Henry on that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising that. It's important that when these things are minuted and actions are there, that they are followed up. So I'm grateful for you highlighting that. Anyone got any other comments on the minutes, or are you happy for me to approve them? Thank you. Just here. Right, cracking on. Then item 4 is the Chair's update. This is on the agenda. It starts on page 13. I have one update and one comment. The update is on the second item, discussions with Network Rail. It wouldn't be a Clean and Green meeting if we didn't have an item on pigeons. I'm delighted to say we have made some progress. Just as it says there, I did meet on site with some of the people from Network Rail that have some responsibility for these things. They have now come back to us at the end of last week saying that they do agree that they need to improve the gridding underneath the bridge, the two bridges over Hutton Road in particular. The ones in Alexander Lane seem fine, and that they're going to do this at some stage, quote, after the nesting season. So we've asked them for precise details of what they are going to do, when they're going to do it, and I have also informed Amy, the lady who has taken a great interest in the welfare of the pigeons, that we have had this update and that we are asking for further information. And she's given us one or two helpful questions to pass on to Network Rail, which we will be doing. So that's an update on that. On the fly tipping thing, the one thing I wanted to draw attention to in the fly tipping thing is that as we have agreed at a recent meeting, we did reduce the target time from 5 working days to 3 working days. And as you will see, we've had quite a considerable success in hitting that target, despite the best attempts of the criminals and irresponsible people who do the fly tipping to make a lot of work for us and for our staff. So I think setting the target tighter was absolutely the right thing, and many, many thanks to the depot team who have responded to that and achieved such a good clear-up rate. One day we'll get on top of it, but I think we'll have to lock an awful lot of people up before we do that. That's my comments on the Chair's update. Has anyone else got any questions? Or yeah, Councillor McShane.
Just on the sustainable planting project, King George's playing fields. You're going to plant bulbs there, no problem with that. But are you going to plant them in the grass? Because the trouble with that, weeds just take over. How are you going to stop the weeds taking over?
Mr. Halton.
I don't have the planting details to hand. I believe it's actually going to be planting of the beds, but I can circulate the planting details around to members after this committee.
So actually have grass, then put the bulbs in there, because the bulbs will grow faster than the grass, but otherwise it's weeds will just take over.
I think we saw Councillor Chinnery next.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I echo your thanks to the officers at the depot on fly tipping. As a Hutton East Ward councillor, I'm noticing fly tips are being sorted much quicker than they were a year ago when I first became a councillor, and it is really, really appreciated. And then I just have a couple of questions on the pigeon. Actually, just one question on the pigeon item. I just wanted to know how many times the fire brigade has attended that site because of the pigeons, because that is a horrible place for traffic as it is, and having to have fire engines there, you know, for an amount of time sorting out the pigeons is not ideal. So I just wanted to know how many times has that had to happen. But thank you.
Mr. Willis, do you have an answer to that?
I'm aware of twice. There may have been other occasions where we haven't been informed or made aware.
Yeah, great, thank you. I just wanted to comment not only on the King George's ornamental garden, but also the one in Carriage's playing field during May. It was a very colourful display of flowers, and I don't know if it's us that does it, but it was, if it is, well done to us, because it's a pretty spectacular display of colour. And for 4 weeks it looks pretty good, but after that it's bare for a while, and I was just wondering whether the new sustainable planting project will have some longevity in the kind of plants that we, the kind of flowers that we plant, whether it will be longer than the 4 weeks, essentially.
I believe that would be the aim to do so, yes. I mean, I think it's, whether the plants can achieve that is something else, but certainly that would be the aspiration.
I think the next person we saw was Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, there's four topics I'd like to bring up, please. The first one regarding the garden waste bin stickers. It states in the report the estimated full-year cost of providing the sticker mix is estimated to be in the region of £12,000. However, looking at the agenda item back on the 20th of February 2024, on point 2.9, it states that the ongoing annual cost of around 9,600. So can I ask why the increase from February 24 from 9,600 to obviously the reported £12,000 there? Do you want me to go through each point individually, or do you want me to?
Probably easiest to get one answer at a time if it's a different issue.
Yeah, so it's a cost per sticker, and as you'll see, the customer numbers have increased, so the costs will also increase. So it would have been based on the existing customer as we understood it to be at that time.
Thank you, Chair. Then just going on to with Network Rail, I think it's one obviously worth mentioning that obviously Greater Anglia become nationalised on the 12th of October, so obviously that line will obviously be run by the government at the time from that point. Just with regards to with the pigeons, I know that we've been going out twice a week to clear the mess. That's obviously at quite a substantial cost to the borough. Are we going to pass those cleaning costs on to Network Rail?
Mr. Ellis, Mr. Houghton?
No, that wasn't intention to do so. I mean, it's unfortunately it's just part and parcel of clearing the highway.
I'll just add to that. When Mr. Ellis and myself met William Stewart from Network Rail, we did point out to him that the mess that was being created because of the inadequate gridding under the bridge was costing our council taxpayers money. So we've left him in no doubt that we're not very happy with having to put that intensive cleaning in place. But it's a commitment we have to make because otherwise it's a very unpleasant experience walking under those bridges.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I still personally think the cost should be passed on, but I'm grateful that you brought that point up. Regarding the pesticide trail, I can see that obviously we're using this foam stream. I've done some research on that today, and I see that we need to use obviously hot water for that. I'm just concerned about acetic acid. It is vinegar, so I understand about the due of the hazard rating, but obviously acetic acid is in an awful lot of the cleaning products that we use. Like we use it in our food, so I do think that sometimes we just need to be a little bit careful with our wording there, and that's my only point on that one. And then with regards to the fly tipping, I saw in the local press that Basildon Council had revealed in April that more than 1,000 fly tips had been cleared in 1 month, and they dished out 172 fines. Are we currently enforcing on any of the fly tips that we're clearing at the moment?
I think the short answer is yes. Unfortunately, the information isn't in here, but we can. I mean, normally that'd be circulated around. But yes, we do so when we can.
Councillor Pound.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to King George's Park again because I think that the flower beds there are wonderful, and I'm surprised at Councillor Naylor because I do drive past there all the time and they always seem to look wonderful. They've appeared in lots of magazines on Essex, and I just don't want this all to become a rewilding because everywhere we've rewilding it looks scruffy, untidy and completely sort of deteriorates the area. So I know about the biodiversity, I know about the bees and the butterflies, but I came in from my garden this evening, which hasn't been rewilded, and there are butterflies and bees everywhere. Geraniums are excellent. So I just wanted to make that point. Don't let this become a scruffy flower bed after all the magnificent displays we've had there.
Okay, this is a follow-up or a different question?
Just to say, I've got about 8 acres of rewilding. It looks awful. It's just old weeds and so on. There's no flowers there. It is dead.
Yeah, I think, I'll bring Mr. Houghton. I think we're well aware of what poor rewilding can look like. If you're going to do it, if you're going to plant wildflowers, you have to do it with a sense of purpose, and you have to do it properly, and you have to know they're going to flower, and you have to know they're going to look colourful. It can be done. There are plenty of examples, but if we're going to rewild areas, it's not so much rewilding, it's about alternative planting, is the way I see it. Would say this is appropriate for planting wildflowers, and it will be done properly. Mr. Houghton.
Sorry, you should say that, not rewilding. Yeah. It isn't rewilding, just letting nature take over. That is awful.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we're intending, but it's a good point. Language matters.
Oh, sorry, for clarity, yes, it is planting rather than rewilding. I think, yes, yeah, I take your point. And I think what we'll do is for the September committee, we'll, just for information, the Chair's update, actually provide an idea of what the planting scheme is going to be like, because it's not running out to October anyway, so for a bit more comments on that if you wish to do so. Thank you.
There's no more comments on the Chair's report. Thank you very much for those constructive remarks. Very helpful. Item 5 is the committee work programme. This is on page 17 of your agenda. And there also is a recommendation that the committee notes and endorses its work programme for the remainder of the municipal year and considers any further items that need to be added. I'm happy to move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Very much. Does anyone want to make any comments on the work programme? Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I can see the woodland management plan reviews on this item. I am concerned that this item was originally due to be part of the scrutiny work plan and was agreed by officers as per the minutes, scrutiny minutes of January 23rd this year. But with no debate or no communication, this item's been removed from scrutiny, which I don't believe to be democratic. So I just would like to, obviously, and I'm chasing that point with officers currently. But do we know, is it possible to both have the woodland management plan on both, a working group for both clean and green and for scrutiny? Because from my perspective, having obviously been involved with the woodland management plan now for over a year, there are items there that I do feel need to be scrutinised that are not necessarily environmental items for clean and green. So obviously, Chair, I'm letting you know obviously that I'm following this point through with officers, but two, do we actually know, can the woodland management plan have two working groups at two different committees?
Right. Did I see any other hands? Yeah, I saw Councillor Kendall, who's not a member of the committee, but you're welcome to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for allowing me to speak, not a member of your committee. It's only a quick question. It was just regarding the tree audit. I know work has been going on that, and I just wondered when feedback or report was going to come back to members of your committee on where things are at with the tree audit, how it's gone, the update, etc. I don't know if there's any news on that. Thank you.
Yes, there is. Mr. Houghton may have some hard numbers to put against. I haven't got them on top of my head. We have audited several thousand trees, most all the ones in the public spaces and parks, to a very high standard. And my intention was, or is, that will be reported to the Tree Management Working Group at its first meeting so that we can look at in detail. Just to pick up Councillor Slade's point, as far as I'm concerned, I want the working group that comes out of Clean and Green to be a tree management working group, so it's looking at all trees, not just woodland trees, and that it's about looking at how we manage all of that in the future, is going ahead. What has happened in the past, that I think is a separate set of issues. It isn't one for Clean and Green. I don't think there's any reason for us in Clean and Green not to have our working group and get on with proactively managing all of our trees in the future. We're very happy that the trees in all our public spaces, and I say this because obviously there was this terrible incident, tragic incident in Chalkwell. All the trees in our public space have been audited are safe. We don't have anything that is propped up in the way that has been reported that the tree in Chalkwell was propped up, and we do take action promptly when we think any tree is dangerous. I think, Mr. Houghton, I think there's one on the Hartswood Golf Course, and there's an oak tree that's got a split in the trunk that we've picked up earlier this month, before the Chalkwell incident as it happens, and that we're going to be coppicing that tree, and we may already have done it, to make sure that it is safe and sustainable in the future.
Thank you, Chair. So I fully acknowledge your points, but obviously, just that you know, and I understand where you're coming from about all trees, but the Woodland Management Plan is a separate plan from 2018 that manages woodland. So for your working group, you may need to add, obviously, woodland urban trees, because obviously that working group implies that it's the Woodland Management Plan. So thank you for the clarity there. To come back to Councillor Kendall. Councillor Kendall raises an excellent point, because from the Clean and Green Committee from the 11th December 2023, recommendation 2 was to allocate an additional £115,000 over a 2-year period to undertake a survey of the council tree stock. So I think obviously it's important that we do get an answer to Councillor Kendall's questions, considering the substantial sum of money that was allocated and the time frame to undertake that survey of the tree stock. And if you're correct about the oak tree on the golf course, just to make you aware, that is an exceptionally rare oak tree, and it's actually a veteran tree, and it's a cross of 2 different oaks. So that is, obviously I understand about the crack and the safety, but that is a tree that maybe you may need to call in the Asian Tree Forum, because that is an exceptionally rare and exceptionally old oak.
Can I just make a comment on that? My understanding is, and then obviously we've got to wait until the Health and Safety Executives reported on the Chalkwell incident, but it is perhaps an example of getting too protective of veteran trees and trying to protect them when they're no longer safe. And that is a trap that we've got to be careful not to fall into. So I take your point, but I think that there is a balance to be struck. Mr. Houghton, can you update us on the numbers?
Sorry, so to be clear, the tree audit has a number of stages. The first one is to actually map out the extent of our ownership of trees, and that was done successfully. Then there's a QTRA, I think we've heard that mentioned a few times, Quantified Tree Risk Assessment, which is undertaken, which then maps out the potential risk of those areas, so that they're zoned. And so both of those parts have been completed. What we're going through now is a survey of each of those areas. We're going through the high risk ones first, which have now been completed. We map those out, and so you'll look through an area to map out individual trees. So I think it's just over 2,300 trees now being mapped individually on a sort of a system, and that's within various formats. We then expect this to be completed by September. So we expect this September to have this completed on track. And so what we should hopefully then do is come back into Clean and Green and probably say that this is the resource we require to manage those going forward. But we are we're sort of certainly on track to do so, and perhaps we'll make a note to present the software and how we actually manage the stock at the next committee, if that's useful.
I think that would be very useful. I'm sure members welcome that. Yeah. Councillor Naylor.
Thanks, Chair. It's good to see that there's a play replacement programme that's been scheduled in. I was just wondering if you could give me some more information about when we'll see that come to this committee at some point for our input, because there's a park between Cromwell Road and Crescent Road and Brentwood West that hasn't been touched for probably 30 years, so it's in desperate need of modernisation, that's for sure. And personally, I'd like to see, when we're looking at upgrading our play parks, some more child and adult exercise equipment in our play park. It's in Worley, for example, the exercise equipment there is not just popular with the adults, it's also popular with the kids. So if we can put that into consideration, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Mr. Houghton.
So the plan is to bring that in September committee, and so the idea is it would be like a rolling programme, 5 years programme, so we can actually look ahead a little bit into what's required replacing in terms of replacements in our existing sort of play equipment capital.
Any more comments? No? In that case, the recommendation has been moved and seconded. Can I put it to the vote? Those in favour? Thank you.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, the proposed pilot waste collection scheme. The report for this begins on page 23 of your agenda. I'm going to move the recommendations first of all before I bring in any of the officers. So the recommendation 1 says that the committee agrees to introduce a pilot waste collection service for an initial 4-month period, which could be extended to 6 months to just over 500 households in the Ingatestone area as set out in Appendix A. The trial service will consist of residual waste in a 180-litre wheeled bin collected fortnightly, paper and card in single-use sacks collected fortnightly, cans and plastics in single-use sacks collected fortnightly. There will be no change to the storage or collection frequencies of any other waste streams or to collections from flats. Recommendation 2, that resident engagement is undertaken within the trial area, throughout the trial, and at completion of the pilot scheme as detailed in this report. That the results of the pilot scheme and resident engagement are brought back to a future Clean and Green Committee meeting to extend or terminate the trial. So I'd move those recommendations, which are on page 24. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second.
So I'd just like to add a few remarks before throwing it open to debate. This is about recycling. This is not about how frequently we collect any particular type of waste. The first consideration is to look at our very poor recycling rates. 37%. We are in the relegation zone when it comes to recycling. We're in the bottom quartile for the whole country, slipping towards the bottom decile, which really is the relegation zone. We know that there is public support for action on recycling. Opinion polls consistently tell us that. In Braintree, where they are now looking at moving to 3 weekly collection of residual waste, they have carried out a very large-scale consultation exercise, which has had 8,000 responses. Of those 8,000 responses, 83% of people supported action to improve recycling rates, 83%. And that's in line with all the public opinion surveys. There was one, a major one published over the weekend. 89% of the population want action on climate change and improving the environment and protecting nature, 89%. So we know there's widespread public support for tackling the problem we're faced with in this borough. What it is not is a cost-cutting measure. We're collecting the same amount of waste over a fortnightly cycle as we do at the moment. We're collecting the same amount of waste. There's no cost-cutting involved in this. But this is a trial. And it's part of what we've said we would do all along with this, which is to make decisions led by the data. We want good quality data. The best way of getting that is actually to try something we know all the modelling tells us will be better. And that's what we're doing. And what will happen if the trial is successful? We will bring it back to the committee. You will see the results. We will have a discussion and we will think about what the implications are for how we collect waste across the whole borough. But we won't do anything following that without proper full borough-wide consultation. Because we want to take people with us. We want people to understand that this is about improving the environment. This is about tackling pollution. This is about making the world better for us, for our children and our grandchildren. Now, Some of the key decisions we've made have been through the working group, but a few things have changed a little bit since the last meeting. What are we doing? We're collecting, as it says in the recommendations, residual waste fortnightly in a wheeled bin that will be delivered to every household in the trial area. There are only 500, and it's free of charge. I've seen some misleading comments on social media that we're going to charge people for bins. That is nonsense. We've chosen the Ingatestone route because it's broadly representative, it's manageable, it's small, but also it's early in the week. So if something goes wrong, we don't think it will, because we have confidence in the team that will be delivering this for us. But if something goes wrong, we've got several days of the week to sort it out. Now, we're going to go to move recycling in single-use bags. Now, on page 35 of the report, there is a comment in the assessment grid. The one problem with single-use bags is they can't be recycled. So we do owe people an explanation as to why we've already moved on from that, and that is no longer a problem. Firstly, we were looking at giving people a wheeled bin for paper and card and another wheeled bin for plastic and cans. So we would have been giving people 3 new bins. We looked at experience elsewhere, in particular the presentation that we had at the Essex Waste Partnership from Braintree about the feedback they were getting, massively positive in terms of improving recycling, but a big, big question mark over being given a lot of bins. That made us hesitate. We then looked at the Basildon experience, which, as you know, was not very well managed last year. And some of you would have seen pictures of overflowing waste in the streets in Basildon. If you actually look at it, the vast majority of it is recycling. And that's because the trial was actually very successful, and people were trying to cram far too much recycling into the bags they were given. We don't want to run into that sort of problem. So that's the other reason for giving them single-use bags. And the biggest change since we first considered this and looked at it and put it to one side is that there is now a fully functional recycling plant for those type of bags in Teesside that turns them into coal pellets. Those bags can and will be recycled. Again, I've seen some silly comments on social media saying that it will just go to landfill. The bags will not. They can be recycled, and frankly, we would have hesitated on going down this route if we didn't have that assurance. The length of the trial, we've considered shorter or longer. We think longer is less disruptive. Why tell people you're going to change and then a month later tell them you're going to change back? Let's give them a bit longer. Longer is less disruptive. We think we'll get better quality data for longer. I've always been very keen, and if those who have been on the Waste Strategy Working Group with me will know that I was always very keen that we stress tested this over Christmas. If there's going to be a problem with this, that's when we'll see it. So that's another reason for extending it. We will review it in February. We will bring the results back here and we will listen. We will listen. We will see how it's going. We'll look at the results and we'll listen to the feedback. And if the feedback is poor, and if the results are not what we hope and expect, then we will stop it. If the feedback is positive and the recycling rates are going in the right direction, we will continue it. I can't make it any clearer than that. What are the measures of success? Well, the previous administration set some ambitious targets. They wanted to move us from the second quartile to the top quartile. They wanted us to hit 60% recycling rates. Fantastic objectives. The trouble is, there was no plan to achieve them. We have a plan. This is the plan. We believe this is the right way to go. And frankly, grandstanding over weekly black bag collection is not a plan. And this is a trial. Communication is going to be absolutely key. It's put into the recommendations. We're going to communicate. We're going to engage with the residents. We already have a very positive conversation going with the parish council, and we're going to continue that, we're going to build on that, and we're going to use their communication network to help engage residents. And Ingatestone Parish Council has a fine example of a parish council that works very hard to engage its residents. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to cooperate with them. What are the perils of inaction? The recycling rates continue to fall. They are falling. It's not a good place to be in. It's bad for the environment. It means more is going to landfill, incineration. That is not good. If we fall into that bottom decile, it will start costing this council money. There are financial consequences. We currently get £500,000 from the extended producer responsibility. This is the money that packaging manufacturers now have to pay to the government, which the government then distributes to local authorities, because obviously packaging is a key part of the waste we collect. We get £500,000 for that. We heard at the Essex Waste Management Partnership that recent meetings with DEFRA, the officials have made it very clear that some of that money will be ring-fenced in future and will be withheld from councils that have poor recycling rates and do not have a plan for tackling them. We're not prepared to pass on to our council taxpayers the consequences of a failure to tackle the recycling rates. This, members, is a responsible, cautious, evidence-based response to those poor recycling rates, and I commend it to members. Liz, do I have a seconder?
You do have a seconder, and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Just before I throw it open up, I've got one brief statement from Councillor Sankey, one of the ward members, who can't be here because he's at the Mount Nessing Village Council meeting tonight. So for your indulgence, I'll just read that out. It's not very long. A climate emergency was declared by the last Conservative government in 2019. In 2023, the current joint administration declared a climate emergency in Brentwood Borough. As part of achieving net zero, recycling is a core activity. As detailed in the report, recycling rates in Brentwood have fallen and is the lowest average in Essex. That fact must be addressed and can't be allowed to continue or indeed regress further. It should be highlighted that this proposed trial has been extensively discussed, considered and agreed by the cross-party Waste Strategy Working Group. It should be emphasised that this is a pilot. The initial 4-month period is important, as long enough for residents to engage and covers the critical Christmas period. The consultation, the feedback from residents will be critical in determining whether the pilot will be extended or terminated. It should be noted that the Ingatestone and Frying Parish Council is supportive of the pilot. Messaging of the pilot should not be underestimated, as residents should understand why and be open to engaging in the trial. It is recommended that the target of increasing recycling is linked to achieving net zero as part of the declaration of the climate emergency. As a councillor for the ward of Ingatestone, Frying and Mount Nessing, I support the recommendation. That's from Councillor Darrell Sankey. Just before I throw it open to it, Mr. Houghton, is there anything, or Mr. Ellis, anything you want to add at this stage?
No, nothing further to add at this stage. Thank you.
Right, who do we have first? Councillor McShane.
Yeah, first of all, I'm against the black bags fortnightly. Hot weather like this, you've got a real problem with smell and everything like that. There's certain things that you can't recycle, babies, nappies, all that sort of thing. And in the rural areas and so on, you do have a problem, like foxes, badgers, birds and so on. So I'm totally against that. And when it comes to the actual recycling bags, we basically, yeah, everyone was against the white bags and the blue bags when they started, but they got used to it, and I think, you know, it's gradually I don't know how many years it's been going, but I think it's people have got used to it now. Now, if you go to a recyclable, a non-recyclable bag, again, we're talking about badgers, foxes and birds. It could be a real mess in the countryside where they peck at the bags and all the rubbish falls out and blows all over the road. I just don't like, it might work in the town centres, I don't know, but not in the rural areas. And also these non-recyclable bags, even if you did go ahead, you can make them biodegradable, which means that they will just disappear over time. But it's quite an expensive item to empty them all and then ship it up to, where was it, Liverpool or something, to be recycled. Also, the expense of these fortnightly dustbins that you're going to dish out to everyone I think is I don't know how much they cost each. Anyway, that's just my point.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Chair. I have, as I have expressed in previous committees and at full council, some real serious concerns over the pilot scheme. The saying lies, damned lies and statistics, I think, comes to mind because I know we do have quite a low recycling rate, and it was told at a previous committee meeting that a good outcome of this would be increasing our recycling rate by 6%, so from 37 to a mid-40s number. Bear in mind that's still lower than the recycling rate under the previous administration. And I think rather than imposing a pilot scheme, we need to find out why are people choosing not to recycle anymore. And if you go and knock on a door, I'm pretty sure your residents will tell you why they are not recycling when maybe they used to. And whilst I agree most people want to recycle, most people think of it as a good aim and something important to do, I am not confident that people would sacrifice a weekly black bag collection purely for recycling. It's one of those things, maybe the aim of increasing recycling is something that obviously has broad support, but at the cost of a weekly black bag collection that was in all of our leaflets, all of our manifestos, I do think is unpalatable and unacceptable. And then when it comes to the pilot scheme itself, I have real reservations over kind of sampling. How do we know this area of Ingatestone has a representative rate of recycling? Is that going to be measured before the pilot scheme starts? So, is it an area that has a higher rate of recycling to begin with? So when a result comes through, it looks like an increase when it's not actually an increase. And also over Christmas, which I understand is a stress test, I'm worried a lot of people will, out of desperation, begin recycling just because there's not enough not enough waste collection. They'll put all their wrapping and boxes into recycling just out of necessity. And I think it's almost like a forced push to make the pilot scheme look like a genuine success. So I'd just like a bit of clarification on how the pilot scheme is going to be measured. Even though I am going to vote against the pilot scheme, I would like to know how it's going to operate. And I may be preempting myself, but I would also like to request a recorded vote if I have a seconder here. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Councillor Pound, we saw next.
Yes, I mean, I can remember going back that we had probably one of the best recycling records in Essex. We did that a lot by communicating with residents, frequent sort of updates on just to remind you that this can be recycled and that can be recycled, and also giving them facts and figures. Look, here's the graph, look how well we're doing in Essex. We actually encouraged people to get enthusiastic about recycling. And I feel that, what have we done so far? Have we actually engaged with residents? Have we gone down that road? The black and white bags were enormously unpopular. largely because they were so unwieldy, they were difficult to store. I mean, I have great trouble lifting mine. In fact, I put the paper one outside and then go out bit by bit and put the paper in. It's, so these are issues. Have we looked at these issues before we move to a cut in frontline services when people have just had a rise in their council tax?
Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Chair. Like my ward colleague, Councillor Sankey, I want to emphasise that the drive to increase recycling rates in this borough is intrinsically linked to our plans to achieve net zero for our council activities by 2030. Sending tonnes of residual waste to landfill produces tonnes of greenhouse gases. Organic matter in landfill decomposes and it produces roughly equal amounts of methane and carbon dioxide. However, the methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas, at least 20 times more effective than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere over a 100-year period. Of course, Essex is moving away from landfill, and soon most of the county's residual waste will be incinerated in the energy from waste plant being built at Rivenhall. But is burning residual waste any better than sending it to landfill? I would argue not. These plants produce typically 600 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour of electricity produced. And that's nearly double the amount of carbon dioxide produced by a gas-fired power station per kilowatt hour. And that's not to mention the toxic chemicals that can be released from burning plastics such as bisphenols, phthalates, dioxins, and microparticles. As has already been said several times, we have the worst recycling rate in Essex at only 37%. And in 3 years' time, this council will no longer exist. And I'm sure that no member of this council would want to pass over such a poor legacy to our successor unitary authority. The aim of this pilot is to give a gentle nudge to about 500 households in Ingatestone towards increasing particularly how much food waste they send for composting. Also, how much paper, card, cans, and crucially plastic containers they send for recycling, thereby reducing their residual waste destined for landfill or incineration. As a ward councillor, I'm backing this pilot because I'm confident that most Ingatestone residents would like to increase the amount of waste that goes for composting or recycling. Crucially, food waste will continue to be collected weekly. Therefore, residents will have every incentive to put their food waste in their food caddy and not in their residual waste wheelie bin, which will only be collected fortnightly.
Can you wind up, Councillor Gorton?
Yeah, sure. A thorough assessment of this pilot through measuring the amount of waste recycled compared to residual waste will be essential to judge whether this has been a success. Likewise, good communications with residents will be crucial so that they understand the changes and reasons for the pilot. We will also need to take into account their views through the planned survey and other channels. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think we have Councillor Slade next.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have 6 questions and obviously a point to make. So would you rather me do the 6 questions at once or one at a time?
There will be part of your 3 minutes
That's
as
fine,
we're into the formal debate.
Fine. So my first question would be that on 26th of February 24, we advised that on the 26th of June 23, we appointed consultants at a cost of £30,000. Do we have a copy of their recommendations and their report? The cost of £12,000, as it states on page 6 regarding the bins, has it been confirmed that a DEFRA grant will be available? Is there a change in policy to the white sacks, and will this now include soft plastics? I understand that with the bin of the crocodile mouth, that the bin then won't be emptied. What's the cost to go back to go and collect that rubbish? We need to increase the recycling rates. I completely agree with you there. So why did we not look to introduce the blue and white sacks amongst other areas rather than introduce a twice monthly bin collection? I have concerns regarding the actual targets, especially if retailers that can be more environmentally responsible. So, for instance, the washing tubs are no longer plastic, they're cardboard. Chewing gum tubs are now obviously cardboard. Even tins are being reduced in size. Going back to the February committee, we advised that our waste and recycling service has an expenditure of 3.25 million. It generates an income of 1.3 million with a net cost of 1.95 million. So will this trial reduce the net cost to the council? On July the 3rd, Essex supported Rochford to enhance their food and waste services, with Essex now paying £450,000 a year to Rochford. It improves their recycling of food and garden waste more efficiently, turning scraps and leftovers into useful resources like electricity. Why are we not part of this scheme? And finally, just looking back at the February committee, the point I made there, Rochford District Council are the best in Essex for recycling. Brentwood Borough Council are the worst, sadly. We've got the same director. I do not understand how we can be so successful at one council in the strategic partnership and not in the other. And I've not seen anything in this report comparing the two and seeing how we can benefit from what's going on at Rochford. So whilst I completely agree with introducing the plastic sacks, I prefer that. I agree with you. I think, you know, that we should bring in the single-use plastic sacks. I think we should have done, if we really want to increase the recycling, we should have looked at improving recycling through ease with the introduction of sacks first before we then looked to going to twice monthly bin collections.
Thank you very much. I haven't seen any more hands, so... Councillor David Kendall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but just wanted to speak on this particular item. Slightly concerned with Councillor Slade's questions, because there were some good questions in there. I'd have thought, maybe I'm wrong, I'd have thought it would have made sense to have asked those questions well before the meeting, got the answers to those questions. So obviously when she came to this meeting tonight with her colleagues, you've got that information in front of you, because this is a decision-making committee. You're making a decision this evening, and that information would have been quite useful to have had, probably for all members, to be honest. What I am concerned with is we have a major problem. We have, as I say, the lowest recycling rates in Essex. We need to do something. I haven't heard anything from the opposition in terms of, if you don't like this, what would you do? I haven't heard anything at all. Now, the bottom line is, this is a pilot, okay? We're going to do a pilot, hopefully, and if we do a pilot, we're then going to get fact and evidence come back, and any future decisions will be based on fact and evidence. And that is absolutely key, as far as I'm concerned. Regardless of whether we go forward more in Ingatestone or anywhere else, it will come back to this committee, which is vitally important. Now, you made the point, Chair, that public support, there is public support for recycling. There definitely is support. But I think two things are fundamental. Communication is key. It's very important this council gets its communication right with residents. And also, you've got to carry residents or take residents by the hand in this whole process. You can't bludgeon people into doing things. You need to take them by the hand in the whole process. In terms of some of the other questions that came up, I live out in a village in Blackmore. Yes, people would be concerned with black bags. You do see them ripped open from time to time. But if you've got a bin with a lid that your black bag would go into, I cannot understand what the problem is, because it's going to be safeguarded from foxes and various other vermin. So to me, that makes an awful lot of sense. You made the point, Chair, there's no charge for bins. That is very, very important. You also made the point, if people want to keep the bins at the end of the trial, they could do so, which again is important. And I honestly think, Chair, 4 months does make sense. Over the Christmas period, it is a tricky time, but if you stopped it just before Christmas, to me, it would be chaos. You either do it at the trial properly or don't do it at all. And I think certainly going over the Christmas period makes far more sense than stopping it beforehand. So I think, in my view, do a trial, get the evidence, get the results, bring it back here, have a proper debate discussion. Hopefully by then we'll have the answers to Councillor Slade's questions, which are good questions, and you can take it forward from there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think we've had a lot of questions, as Councillor Kendall has just reminded us. So I'm going to bring the officers in. Mr Houghton or Mr Ellis, can you pick up some of the questions? I'll give you a prompt on some if you've lost sight of them.
Thanks, Chair. If I can start, please. But yeah, I appreciate any reminders that come along. The consultant's report wasn't necessarily about recommendations. It was a fact-finding report for us as officers and members to make decisions as to the best way forward based on some of the modelling, and that it was that report that's led to us deciding to not trust the modelling within that without putting it to a proper test, hence the trial that was going to be going ahead. The DEFRA grant has been approved and has been paid. Costs to return and clear waste, that to me would be something that we'd hope to address through comms. So we will do everything we can in order to reduce any costs that are associated with that. Yeah, what others have we got? Yes, please, Marcus.
So I think around establishing a good baseline. So yes, there will be baseline collections before we actually commence the trial. So ideally, I'd expect to see data almost weekly, so you can see so I take your point around Christmas. I think we'd have to look at that almost as a separate data set, but certainly, you know, the full breadth of the data will be available for members to look at, and we also intend to do a composition analysis before and after as well. So although we have the tonnages, we also actually had a review of some of the households' waste, actually broken down how much they were recycling before we started the pilot and how much they're recycling at the end of the pilot. But I said it's going to be very data-led. I have no fixed view on whether what the outcome of this will be. But I think it's about collecting that data and allowing members to have a sort of considered view of that. I think that's the key. I think, was there any other real questions around?
I think the one on Essex County Council and funding support, that's something that we can hold those discussions. They're already helping with the comms, and that will be something that we can progress once we've actually got some tonnage data, so we can start extrapolating numbers and calculating what the savings could potentially be to Essex.
And Mr Houghton, do you have any observations on the difference between the waste collection methodology in Brentwood and in Rochford?
Yes, I mean, I'm always reluctant to kind of compare the administrations too much because they are distinctly different. But certainly the collection systems of Rochford are very much, you know, based on an alternate weekly collection of residual waste. It's an alternate weekly collection of recycling, and I think one of the sort of big indicators is it's a free garden waste service that's collected weekly, which bumps up the recycling figures quite considerably. It's a different system of collection, but I would something if we should consider, we could view that, but there is a cost to that, so that their net costs are considerably higher, their collection service, than they are Brentwood. So Brentwood offers excellent value for money of its service, but it's like comparing apples to pears, frankly.
No, thank you. I think has had their chance to have a say, so but if you've already spoken once.
So it's just a point of order. Councillor Kendall, thank you. I take your comments on board. I was only asked to be a sub over the weekend, and I've literally just brought those questions here. So I take your points, and I'm happy to circulate those questions. Just also, I did offer an alternative because I would have looked to improve recycling first, which is what I did suggest about doing the blue and white sacks in other areas, in more than one area, in other areas within the borough, to see if that improved the recycling rates before we went to twice monthly bin collections. And if I may come back to the officer regarding the consultants, it clearly says at point 2.7, the findings will be set out in a future report. So I would have thought that that report would have been attached to this item. I did also ask about whether the policy had been changed to with the white sacks include soft plastics, but as I said, and obviously the impact on the net cost, but I'm happy to circulate those questions, obviously if they can't be answered now.
I think we've definitely got an answer to a couple of those. Soft plastics, for instance, that's coming, but it can't be done yet. But no, well, let's get an answer to those first.
Just soft plastic. So you're talking about plastic bags and so on, because that's one problem. We don't know what to put in the plastic.
Have an answer to that, and then we'll move to Councillor Gerard for something.
I'll probably defer to Mr Ellis on the soft plastic, but I was just going to touch upon the report. That we're happy to circulate the report. It's just a particularly hefty report. So I had visions of the report pack being too large. I think we have circulated a summary in a previous report before now to committee, but I'm happy to circulate the entirety of the report. It leads to the same conclusion that we've actually summarised here. But I'm more than happy everyone to have a look at that. Thank you.
I think we've overlooked Councillor Forchers. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak really briefly, and it's a point of information following, let's see, a point that Councillor McShane raised. There is, on page 26, paragraph 2.6, and this was raised rather pertinently within the working group by one of your members, and that's impacts on specific households. And it does mention larger families, it touches on medical waste, and also where it's a household where there's multiple occupancy. So obviously these are could prove to be an anomaly unless they were looked at. I'm really saddened to hear that the pessimism that comes across in terms of what is a really well thought through pilot that has a lot of work has been invested in by officers in terms of the declining recycling rates. And that's something we should all hold our hands up to, because it's happened through two administrations. It was falling once inherited. It was already falling. And yeah, and I think that was the main point I was making. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gerard, you reserved your right to speak. Do you want to exercise it?
I do. Thank you. I do understand it's a very emotive subject. Personally, I don't quite understand why moving to a fortnightly black bin collection is so emotive. When I have conversations with people, they just say, well, why do you still have a weekly black bag collection? What's the need when we've got brilliant recycling schemes, I think, in this borough? And I thank you, Councillor Fulcher, for answering those questions. I think all elements have been looked at in this report. If there are other exceptions that come forward, then I know the officers will be willing to look at those and to consider them. But I think having a black bin solves any issues with vermin, animals, food waste, which obviously is the key contributor to animals attacking waste. Those collections will continue, and we hope to continue encouraging people to put more food waste out or compost. And I commend this report, the trial. I look forward to the results. I hope they are going to be positive, and we can then look at the implications across the borough. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I don't think I have anything to add to that, so I think we'll move to the vote. We've had a request for a recorded vote. So over to you, Mrs. Folkes.
Thank you, Chair. Will members please state for, against and abstain when I call your name. Councillor Worsford.
For.
Councillor Gerard. For. Councillor Fulcher. For. Councillor McShane.
Against.
Councillor Naylor.
For.
Councillor Chinnery.
Against.
Councillor Gorton.
For.
Councillor Pound.
Against.
Councillor Slade. Thank you, Chair. That's 5 for, 4 against. That is carried.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the debate and the questions. This is an important issue, one clearly that we're going to come back to many times. So we move on to item 7 on the agenda, which Waste Storage Collection and Management Guide for Developments, which begins on page 41 of the agenda. Mr. Ellis, do you have anything to add at this stage before I move the recommendations?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so the recommendations are: 1, that the committee approves and adopts the draft Waste Storage Collection and Management Guide attached as Appendix A to this report. Recommendation 2, that the committee notes that officers will work with the developers to ensure the principles specified in the guide are embedded in the development design at the earliest stage as far as is reasonably possible. And I would move those recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
So this is really about spelling out what good looks like. We have had too many examples of developments where particularly where there are flats involved, where the waste storage areas have not been well designed, are not properly accessible, and consequently that causes huge problems with the collections and waste builds up. And we all know the problems that come from that in terms of vermin and waste overflows and so on. So we've established, this has been done in consultation with the planning department, we've established what good looks like. And that will be given to developers, as it says in the recommendations, at an early stage. And one hopes that they will take it on board. And if they don't, then anyone buying properties in those developments will see what good looks like and will see that what has been built is not good and is not fit for purpose. So that's what this is aimed to do. It is aimed to raise standards, improve the quality of the waste storage areas so that they can be fully accessible, so we don't have the endless problems that we face with some of the places at the moment. Clearly, there are some older developments where they just weren't designed properly in the first place, and we have to live with those. This is about future developments, so I hope that this meets with members' approval. See any hands going up, so shall we move straight to a vote on this one? Yes, those in favour? Yep.
That's unanimous.
That's
Chair.
unanimous, thank you. Speeding on, the Ash Dieback Action Plan. This is item 8 on page 67 of the agenda. Mr Houghton, do you have anything to add at this stage before I move the recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Just to reiterate my thanks to the working group and the contribution. It was genuinely appreciated. And just to introduce you to Mr Dominic Poston here of Horde Associates, who's assisted with making an external review of the original action plan and provided that review that you'll see appended to the report. But happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just move the recommendations. 1, that the committee approves the revised Ash Dieback Action Plan as set out in Appendix A, and that this becomes an appendix to the Council's tree policy and replaces the former Ash Dieback policy. I'd like to move that, and do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second.
I don't want to say too much about this. I think it's an issue that we have debated thoroughly in this committee and also in scrutiny. This is, as it says, an action plan. We do have ash dieback in our trees in this borough. We're not alone in that problem, quite clearly. It is a national problem. We've looked at what best practice is, we've incorporated that in an action plan, and this is an action plan. This is about giving us the tools that we need to get on with tackling ash dieback in a constructive way in line with best practice. So I commend this to the committee. Councillor Slade.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, if I just may take this opportunity again, please, just to express my thanks to obviously Councillor Aspinall, who is a capacity then acknowledged my points of concern regarding the then proposed ash dye policy and referred this to scrutiny. There's various councillors that I've already thanked, many of are here, obviously for their support as well from the period. I will make the point again that I was dismayed this took from September 24 until March 25 for the working group to be formed, but I am grateful for the work undertaken by Mr Poston, and to say that, that we do need to create an urban arboriculture environment that should be sustainable tree cover with a viable differing age structure in order to future-proof against the problem of disease, global climate change and biosecurity issues. And that comment there is part of the current tree officer. That was part of his statement. So that was part of his working policy. And just to add, there is recent, I'm just trying to call it up now, there's recent research from Queen Mary College and Kew Gardens regarding ash dieback, because some species, there are some evidence of, here we go, that ash is evolving resistance, and it's actually quite an interesting study that I recommend you all to read, because it involves genetics and proof of the study of genetics going back to 1918 and theories by Charles Darwin. So that was published on the 27th of June 25. So it is an evolving situation, ash dieback. There's lots of very interesting information out there, which I will continue to read. And just to add, given that this recent research, that, as I said at the Scrutiny Committee, we have got some prime examples that we can do our own monitoring on to monitor ash dieback, and if any of the coppice trees are demonstrating any sign of resistance to ash dieback. And I think it's important that we do take time to monitor those coppice trees. Thank you, Chair.
I can't see any other contributions. Do you want to respond to any Councillor Slade's points on the most up-to-date research?
Just if there's an opportunity to send that through, I'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'll put this to the vote. The recommendations have been moved and seconded. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor Gerard? No. In that case, can I see those in favour, please?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Another unanimous vote. Thank you very much indeed. That takes us to item 9, which is the vehicle replacement strategy. This begins on page 89 of the agenda. Before I move the recommendations, Mr Houghton, do you want to add anything to the report?
Good evening. Just to point out that it's very much an aspirational list to assist with forecasting potential capital spend for the council over a 5-year period. It sets out this year's expenditure in a bit more detail, but the rest of it's more about just setting out a schedule and then reviewing that on an annual basis. Thank you.
Right, I'll move the recommendations. Thank you, Mr Houghton. That the committee approves the draft vehicle replacement strategy as set out in Appendix A, subject to approval of budget in future years. Recommendation 2, that the committee acknowledges that a future capital plan for the vehicle replacement programme will be submitted for consideration by Council in accordance with the proposed strategy. And recommendation 3, that the vehicle replacement strategy is reviewed on an annual basis and presented at committee for consideration. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Happy to throw that open to debate. Does anyone want to make any contributions? Councillor McShane.
Yeah, just, it says the fleet is made up of 80 vehicles and pieces of plant. What are the pieces of plant? You're talking about lawnmowers and tractors, are you?
In the main, yes, the ride-on mowers, tractors, I think we have a track digger, but in the main, ride-on mowers and tractors.
So, but you cannot replace them with electric vehicles.
Absolutely, that is correct, yes. So you'll see that the programme identifies where there are electric vehicle equivalents, but it acknowledges that there are going to be a core a diesel fleet in the future. I mean, I think that's where we are.
And on this replacement, it says normally it's 5 to 7 years. You're not talking, and then if it's maintained well, it can last up to 10 years. You're going to carry on that policy.
That is correct, yes.
Will only be replacement when they come to the end of their lives.
That's certainly my recommendation, yes, we wouldn't want to, but I think as it comes to the end of its life, I think that's the opportunity to look at whether there is possibly a more modern equivalent, replacement equivalent, such as an electric vehicle, that will be suitable. I think by planning ahead, the idea would be to at least, for example, with a refuse vehicle, which is controversial, that I'd want to trial that in advance, but know that as an authority, that we have had some indication that something we genuinely are looking at rather than asking someone to come for a trial that we're not genuinely interested in, if that makes sense.
Councillor, anyone else? Oh, Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. My points would be that I understand now that you can actually get HVO at the pumps. You know, I'm a supporter of the HVO and obviously can see the difference it's made to improving the air quality in the borough. So just to make that point. I can't see on the report the cost to insurance. I know that for a domestic vehicle, it's 60% more to insure an electric vehicle than what it is a non-electric vehicle. So obviously I can't see what the increase in insurance would be on commercial vehicles. Also, I think we need to take into account the range because it's only recently that the transit has gone from a range of 37 miles to 100 miles. And I don't believe that 100 miles would be necessarily sufficient for the depot. And just my other concerns are obviously the fact that we would possibly be increasing the demand for lithium and cobalt, and just bearing in mind that is mined in China, so how that fits in with our climate emergency. And there was another point that I really can't remember, so I'm sorry. So yeah, that's it, I do remember it, sorry. And then just the concern regarding devolution. There's a possibility that we will not exist as a council in 28 and obviously could be with other authorities. Therefore, we may not need to replace our fleet because obviously the other authorities may have sufficient for us. So I'm just concerned at the timing of this.
Mr. Houghton, do you want to respond to any of those?
So I think I do take your point. So that particularly on what could happen in the future. So I think that's why it has to be an annual review. So you know, and again, even with trials the technology keeps changing. So some of these vehicles on here that I've put in maybe in the 4th year at the moment would not be suitable. But by the time we actually say we bring this in for that year to be considered in more detail, they may well be, and they may well not be. So you know, the report it's a moving, live, if you like, schedule. So it just sets out and informs finance at least that there is a plan to how we're going to replace the vehicles, and this is the approximate cost at this time. But we'd want to be bringing that in every year to say these are vehicles we're suggesting we purchase this year, and this is the business case for doing so. This year it's a bit simpler. You know, but next year there could well be a consideration for an electric refuse vehicle, but we'd want to have trialled that this year and bring you back that information to consider that in more detail. But I do take the point that with HVO, again, I think it's a great way of bridging the gap, but if you look at, I guess we sort of be driven by government guidelines, they are still pushing us down that electric route as the longer term solution. So HVO is, I think, unsustainable for all the plants, but I think at least for the plant that you can't electrify, so the tractors and that sort of thing, we'd want to carry on relying on HVO for the future. Thank you.
Just quick.
Are you aware of, is there, because obviously 60% on obviously a domestic vehicle increase on the assurance, are you aware of that, the same similar on the contractor vehicle?
We've not experienced that issue. So we have got electric vehicles on the fleet, and we've not experienced that issue. But I will ask that question of them specifically. If there's a tipping point in, if you have say half your fleet, will we see an increase in cost? But domestically, yes, there is an issue. Thank you.
Right, any other contributions? I think this is, it's a good plan. It's good to have visibility. If and when we're merged into a larger unitary authority, our new partners look at our programme and say, well, hang on a minute, we've got 2 ride-on mowers sitting around that can meet your replacement programme. Well, that would be very nice. But I think what we'll be doing is, by looking this far ahead, is when we go into the new structure, we will be able to say, this is what our vehicle replacement requirements provisionally look like. So we won't be going in blind, won't be going with a blank sheet of paper, we won't be going in leaving people guessing about what our requirements are. I mean, some of this is a moving target, isn't it? The range of vehicles is getting better all the time, so some that may be unsuitable today might be suitable tomorrow. I know there are big question marks on some of the things I've read over the 26-tonne refuse collection vehicles, that the electric versions are not particularly suitable, certainly for rural areas, which is why Mr. Houghton mentioned that if we plan to think about replacing an existing vehicle with an electric one, we will try and get one on trial first of all, so that we can have confidence that we're making an informed decision, and we're not trying to preempt that decision. So I think it's good to have a plan, it's good to have a programme, and it's good to have visibility, and I thank the officers for the diligence of going through our fleet and looking at what the future requirements are likely to be. I can't see anyone else wanting to contribute, so I shall move to a vote. Can I see those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. I don't have any items of urgent business. Could I thank Councillor Gerard for being my very able Vice Chair. It's her first time in that role, and thank you very much for that. And thank everyone for their contributions to tonight's meeting. Look forward to September.